Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from an anonymous requester, melodic black metal made by an 18-year-old. We're going to be checking out the band Gyves, or maybe Gyves, Gyves. Comes from the album My Death Sentiment. We're looking at the track At Dawn, I Now Wander. Let's dive in, see what's going on here. This is rather interesting. I might need to do a refresher on old school black metal. But this almost feels like black metal by way of heavy metal. The expanded instrumentation has been a nice touch as well. Nice harmony. Rather abrupt, especially with the rising melody line. I do like the idea of reprising the intro. I'm not too keen on the transition into it though. But I do like this expansion of this acoustic instrument. Getting to spend more time with this is very cool. A little bit of a ritornando there. Yeah, nice dynamics there, both on the volume of the idea as a whole, but also the different picking styles and attack styles, but also a little bit of the rhythmic change too. A lot of it was kind of this syncopated eighth note idea, but you also had that dun 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 dun, that nice little run there in the middle too. So yeah, I really like what's going on there. Overall, again, as far as black metal goes, this feels different to me, particularly because it feels more like heavy metal. The compression is certainly there. The harsh vocals feel more death metal to me, though. They're kind of lacking the higher pitched harshes that I kind of associate more with black metal. I'm not even talking about the shrieks of like DSBM, just they feel more like growls, which in my mind are kind of categorized more into death metal. But when I listen to the guitar riffs, like we don't have any sections in here that are just 16th note playing. When I listen to the drums, we didn't have any blast beats in here. We didn't have any alternating bass and snare. It was fairly it's fairly functional, honestly. There's not too many drum parts in here that really stood out to me, but it still feels measured in a way. As extreme as black metal can be across the board, extreme riffs, extreme drum parts, extreme harshes, this feels rather reserved. And I kind of dig that too, because it really allows the harmony and the melody to stand at the forefront. It's not the atmosphere that takes over. And this is something I've talked about regarding black metal in the past, is that even non-atmospheric black metal tends to feel really freaking atmospheric because of how much emphasis is put on generally putting a lot of notes at one time and having the production overshadow the attacks. It does something similar to what shoegaze does, where the production ends up feeling like the core identity of the genre. And when production takes over, it becomes more atmospheric, more about the vibes than the composition itself. Now, black metal also has very distinct composition too, note choices, particularly interval choices and chords. So all of that plays into it a little bit more. But I think it's why it's so easy to mix black metal with pretty much anything else. You want to do blackened punk, you want to do blackened death metal, you want to do blackened doom metal, you want to do blackened pop music. It's because the aesthetic is such a strong part of the identity that if you just carry that aesthetic over to something else, it automatically kind of feels blackened. So the aesthetic is here, but the composition is different. This almost feels folky at times, particularly when we have the acoustic guitar, 100%. I don't know if it is a guitar. I should probably technically call it a lute, as I'm sure it's certainly in the lute family. But the acoustic instrument sounds great, but very folky at the beginning and certainly there at the end, especially as we have what sounded like water kind of lapping against the shore. A little bit of, what is that? Like field recording going on there. But even the guitar riffs themselves, dun, 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 dun. You got this little galloping thing going on, but it's slower. It takes its time. It feels closer to maybe folk metal still. But there's also a heaviness, particularly in the first electric guitar section, that I immediately clocked as heavy metal inspired, feeling like it came from the classic metal bands. And so I can feel these influences kind of all over the place. A little bit of death, a little bit of folk, a little bit of heavy, a little bit of blackened, and all just kind of smashed together into this. And generally it works. I think most parts of this are solid. The way that the composition works, the way that the melodies are rhythmically integrated with the drum part, the way that the vocals sit around all of this, the harmonies on the melodies, even the solo section itself. I thought it was all really well done. On a compositional level, this is, I think, a solid track. It is a good framework too for hopefully this group to grow and expand and really put down their mark on the metal realm. It is a little rough around the edges, but it shows so much promise. And I think it's a very cool collection of sounds that honestly is kind of novel for me. I've heard two of these four genres together, and not any specific two, just saying like you can group most of these two, and I've probably heard some variant of it, but all four of these, the death vocals, the folkier melodic devices, the heaviness, the weight of heavy metal, sort of the vibe of that. I think it's also the lighter, thinner guitars on here too that kind of remind me more of heavy metal than modern black metal. There's just it's a lot of little details. That's what I'm saying. Influences, so many smashed together. It's very cool. On the other side of the equation, though, the requester mentioned that this musician, a single musician. I had mentioned this being a band earlier, and maybe it still is, but maybe it's a one-person band. I might look into that when I check out some lyrics. Anyways, 18 years old. If the artist ever happens to land on this video, please, I mean no ill will here. It certainly sounds like an 18-year-old wrote this. There is a bit of lack of experience in it. Like I had mentioned, I feel like this is a really good foundation to build from. I'm really excited to see where this musician goes, where they end up taking their craft and evolving it. It is, again, rather novel, but it is very rough around the edges. Particularly the opening of this track, within the first minute, minute and a half, there were a dozen timing inconsistencies. The production on this is not consistently solid. There is one part in, I'm going to call it a chorus. I don't know if lyrically it was, but it felt like a repeated melodic idea that we came back to multiple times on this track. We have single guitar and it does its thing. And then we get a harmonized guitar and they do the thing together, but with two different pitches. But this feels overpowering. It dominates everything else in the mix. It feels like the sound sphere grew 15%. And when that second guitar layer comes off, it shrinks back down. This can be done purposefully, and you could probably do it with some cool artistic intention behind it as well, but what it ultimately feels like is that the song is at its peak in these 4-bar segments, and everything else feels 10% smaller than it should be, which means none of the rest of the track feels like we're at full intensity, full power. That is fairly normal in songwriting, to have parts that are full and parts that are less full, but usually you're not going to have that fullness for a short idea like this. So I'd love to know if that was intentional or not, and if it was, maybe what the thought process was behind it. But to me, it felt like one of those engineering failures that you learn from. Maybe you wanted to add the extra guitar and you wanted to feel something. You want to be able to hear the second guitar maybe, but it ended up just feeling larger every single time. You didn't quite know the way around it. I've been there. I'm still there. My engineering skills they still grow. They still grow, but I still consider myself a novice at mixing and mastering and all that stuff. So I say this very specific hypothetical situation from experience. But that's what it sounds like to me. There's timing inconsistencies, there's volume inconsistencies, there's just general, I don't want to call it normalization that isn't present, but it does feel like some parts of each section is just a little more dynamic than it would probably be normal for. Black metal, in fact, most metal tends to have consistency of volume. The clipping that comes through the process of overdrive and compression typically helps with this to normalize a volume size for the instrument consistently. Anytime you play it, it's the same volume. Here we have some wavering in that. I do think it is interesting, but it is unusual for this style of music. So I don't know if I should lump that into bad production or interesting style of production, but it's certainly something that caught my ear. I could also go into the realm of composition with this. I feel like generally most of this is cool. The guitar riff has a lot of energy to it. It is always pushing forward. It's a little bright, but there's an edge to it, which gives this feeling of, to me, almost like an 80s pulpy fantasy adventure kind of thing. And I think that works really well. But there's also a hyper repetition to a lot of the rhythmic devices. The drum part, as I mentioned, it's very functional. Almost none of it stands out to me. The guitar riffs themselves are cool, but they also kind of, my interest in them wanes over time, especially as we continue to reuse similar rhythmic patterns beneath them. Even going to the solo, which I thought was well done, and the harmonizing of the solo was very cool. It also reused like 60% of the riff. And reusing a riff to kick off the solo is pretty cool, but reusing the riff in the solo for pretty much the majority of the solo, and then repeating that to harmonize it, ends up feeling too, well, too similar, to use a similar word to similar. Running out of vocabulary here. To the riff itself. So it doesn't feel so much like a solo as an extended idea of something we've already heard a lot of. But there's a lot of what I can see is like the intentionality behind it. And I think that's something that always comes out to me when I'm listening to music like this, is I think to myself, is this great music? No, It's good, like solid 6 or 7 out of 10. I have very little issues with it, but it certainly isn't one of the best things I've ever heard. And it's not really redefining too much. But what I do hear is the potential. I hear a lot of ideas being put into this that aren't executed well. And the thing is, when it comes to artists, ideas are the hardest things to come up with. There are plenty of musicians out there who are iterative. They can repeat things, they can follow trends, they do it to a T. The production sounds tight. The composition, the performance, all of it is fantastic. They're just not doing anything new. And that's not a bad thing. I love many iterative artists. I'm a big fan of iterative music to begin with. I'm a pop fan, so, that just kind of comes with the territory. But ideas are hard. You can learn execution, but ideas kind of have to come from the gut. And when I see artists like this, and they have really cool ideas that are executed poorly, I know they're going places. They have a really strong foundation, and they have very simple things that they need to fix and grow and get that experience with and just develop over time with their craft. And I really look forward to see where this group goes in the next 10 years. See what they're doing through their 20s and heading into their 30s. I think that would be I think we're going to end up seeing a group that helps maybe not completely redefine black metal, but certainly push forward a subgenre of it that, again, I've heard bits and pieces of, but not quite this specific combination of it. It is still rather novel in my mind. And I will say one cool thing is that it feels like a great bridge into black metal. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's missing all of the most abrasive parts of black metal while still retaining what makes black metal cool, the atmosphere and the chords, the guitar riffs, all of that's still present. I really enjoy what's going on here. I just hope that this person sticks with it and expands their craft over time. Let me find some lyrics to this and then we're going to wrap this one up. I wonder if this track actually fits within a larger narrative. It seems to be a small idea within a much larger one. In fact, that small idea is an I Want song, which I know I've brought this up a few times, but for anyone who is unaware, in musicals, there is typically an I want and an I am song. Usually your villains are going to get the I am, they just get to tell you who they are. The I want song is usually by your protagonists, and it's their goals being delivered to the audience in musical form so that the audience knows what they're going to try to obtain or do by the end of the story. This is an I want. This is somebody who desires peace, that they seek a gate by a castle, and that they will follow the stars to find this, but that there is also a forgettable past that will find its way back to them. And in all of that chaos, they'll be welcomed to a chamber of trust. It says that many years they have trudged in cold emptiness to terminate a fate, and that no dagger or blade will be in their way, and that a force calls upon them to fulfill their desires. There's some grand journey here. This is track 3, by the way, of 9, and it's still within the first 10-ish minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of a 55-minute album. So we're still quite in the intro here. To have all of this kind of setting up where the story would go if this were a concept album, yeah, this is a good time to be doing it. We have an instrumental opening and then a 6-minute second track that could set the scene for things. And now we're finally introduced to our protagonist and we get to find out what they're doing here. So they have this grand scope, they have this thing that they're seeking, and they know it's going to be a hard journey, and not just what's ahead of them, but also what's behind them will catch up. So they have lots of hurdles ahead of them. It says, "Beyond comprehension, I shall open the gate to my furthest point. As I hoard the knowledge that I've been looking for, I see a distant glimpse of my lost, forgotten key." All right. Right here, There's intrigue. Where does this key go? Does this key go to the gate by the castle? Is this the first step on the journey? What kind of knowledge are they hoarding? What kind of past is going to catch up to them? I want to know. I'm ready to read the rest of the lyrics. So, yeah, this is a really good way to build interest in anyone who's paying attention to the story, which I'll be honest, listening to just the words in the music, I didn't catch much of that. Harsh vocals usually aren't my forte for picking up on a first time anyways, but I'm glad that the lyrics are written somewhere because this is well done. Sets up a nice world, sets up some questions, grabs the listener's interest. Yeah, again, solid ideas. And if this is a concept album that they're putting together at 18, which by the way, unless they had other projects prior to this was the first album they put out, and it is a full album. So that's really impressive in and of itself. I still think that this group, this artist, has a bright future ahead of them. Funny thing to say for a black metal artist, but it is a bright future. They have a bleak future ahead of them. Is that better or worse for a black metal artist? I don't know. I can't wait to see what they do moving forward, though. Again, a lot of promise shown on display here. I think it's going to be really good moving forward. These are my thoughts then. At dawn, I now wander. From Gyves, Gyves. I don't know. I probably should have looked that up. What did you think, though? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this track? Let me know. Drop all of those ideas and comments into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find my stuff. But given that they are a smaller group, I'm going to assume, I'm also going to put links for this band in the description box as well. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. If you head on over to any of their stuff, like, subscribe, heart, star, thumbs up, whatever the metrics are, show them some love from this community. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.